So historically, this week that's just beginning is called Holy Week. It's the week that leads up to Good Friday. That's the day that people remember Jesus died, and Easter Sunday, the day that people remembered that he came back to life. And over this week, people pause and reflect on what Jesus' death and then his resurrection actually means for them. What I want to do over the course of these next few days is Chrissy and I are going to share some of the very last things that Jesus said. He was very intentional, very deliberate. He did not waste his final words, but used them very strategically, if you like, to communicate great things for us. The first one I want to look at and think about is the little phrase he uses, "It is finished." It's found in the record that John made as an eyewitness. John was there and he literally heard this with his own ears. And I just want to read the little sequence of events beforehand. So this is from John chapter 19. This is what it says. Later, knowing that everything had been finished, and so that scripture would be fulfilled, Jesus said, "I am thirsty." A jar of wine vinegar was there, so they soaked a sponge in it, put the sponge on a stalk of a plant and lifted it to Jesus' lips. When he'd received the drink, Jesus said, "It is finished." With that, he bowed his head and he gave up his spirit. Now you can see how deliberate Jesus is here. Right at the beginning, it says, later, knowing that everything had now finished, and so that scripture could be fulfilled, Jesus said, "I'm thirsty." So even though he's in excruciating pain and agony, he is well aware of what's happening, and knowing his life has almost come to an end. That's what it means when it said everything had been finished. He knows he's about to die, and with the Bible in his mind, so scripture would be fulfilled, he takes the initiative and he asks for a drink. "I'm thirsty," he says. It then says that they got this sponge, they soaked it in wine and they lifted it up to him. He's hanging on a crucifix at this moment, and they lifted it up to him. Now, we could think that's an act of compassion and mercy, but it's absolutely not. This sponge and the wine it's on and the stick, this is the ancient form of how an anus was wiped after a rich person had gone to the toilet. A slave would have this sponge and a stick and reach round and wipe them clean. They're literally lifting that to Jesus' mouth as they mock him, laugh at him. It's horrendous and horrid and disgusting in every way. Then it says, when Jesus had received this drink, he uses this phrase, "It is finished," and he bows his head and he dies. Well, what does Jesus understand is going on? Well, remember, he's got the Bible in his head, so scripture can be fulfilled when he says, "I need a drink." Right the way through the Bible, the anger of God's rightful anger at human rebellion and human error and human brokenness, God is right to be cross at that, right? It's described as a cup of God's anger. Right the way through the Bible, this image of a cup, each engraved with our individual names, a cup that says Alex, is filled with that rightful anger of God. And if you like, if we were to drink that, it would destroy us. That anger would just disintegrate us, ruin us in every way. Now Jesus takes this imagery, and as he dies on the cross, he's saying, look, I am going to finish that cup. I am going to drain that cup to the last drop. He uses this phrase, "It is finished." That phrase in the original, it's actually only one word in the original language Jesus would have used, a word that's pronounced something like teleski, and it literally means there's nothing left. It is totally empty. It was used by ancient landlords as a stamp on barrels which had been drained of all their wine or beer and been left out to be collected. This one is finished. This one is empty. There's not a drop of drink left. As Jesus dies on the cross, what he's intentionally and self-aware that he is doing is taking all the rightful anger that you and I deserve upon himself. He's draining it, and it is finished. And so that cup still has my name on it, but there's nothing left in it. The rightful anger of God at Alex has been absorbed by Jesus, and I am free of it. I'm forgiven of it. I no longer have to bear the consequence myself. Now, I particularly want to invite you, if you're not yet a Christian, if you're not someone who's trusted in that finished death of Jesus before, I really want to invite you, as we come to the end of this small video, to just say to Jesus, quietly in your own mind, Jesus, I trust you to have taken all of that right anger of God that had my name on it. I trust, Jesus, you've taken it all, and I am free. I really, really hope that you're able to do that just quietly in your own heart now. If you'd like to read this story about Jesus from the Bible, then you just need to follow the link that's in the description below this video. And if you'd like to discover more about Jesus, what it means to follow him, being a Christian, or church life, then why don't you drop us an email at the address below.